So we're in a Gantt chart, we're in Google Sheets event. So the event is scavenger race, exploring Sydney. That's nice and easy. So what we're going to do to make this agile is we're going to add in a couple of elements. Number one, we're going to make an action list. So to do this, all I'm going to do here is we're going to write down the top 10 actions that need to occur. Top 10 actions. Second thing that we're going to do, once we've got those top 10 actions, we're actually going to write down what those actions would be. Third, we're going to figure out the duration. So this is how many hours the task would actually take to do. Fourth, we're going to add the lag. So this is how many days we're going to give someone to do that number of hours of work. I'll show you why these two things are different in a second. Fifth, we're going to figure out who is doing it. Then we're going to figure out what is the status of it. Now, I always do this and forget one thing, but I'll figure it out as we go. So we're going to figure out what actions need to happen, how long they're going to take, how many days that everyone has to do it, who is going to do it, what the status of them is, and then we're going to map them out. So let's imagine that we want to run this event, and let's just say, for argument's sake, we want to run this event in a month. So we want to run this event, the Scavenger Hunt Amazing Race, on the 27th of June, 2026. So it's right in the middle of the year, but who cares? Let's just say that's when we want to run it. Okay. So then what we're going to add in here, one more little step, is we're going to add in the dates. So if we take today, so let's do our dates here as this is going to be Wednesday, and today is 5/27/2026. This is American style formatting, so go with me here for a second. There we go. We go all the way over here. That's not helpful. Let's try this. That's better. All the way over to 14th of June. And then we're going to add in a bunch more because we want to get to the 27th. I know this is painful to watch me set up, but I like to do it from built from the ground up rather than give you a fancy tool, because then someone goes, I don't know how you did that. First, if I actually show you how we did it, then hopefully it's way easier. Then let's orient it that way. Great. Great. Let's just format this up just a little bit so it's nice. Okay. So what we've got here now is we've got the basics of this event. So we want this event to run on the 27th of June. So this is our event date here. So everything we're doing up until this point is preparation. So let's imagine, and I'm going to need your help here, jump in the chat and help me out. Let's imagine that we were going to plan this event, this Scavenger Hunt Amazing Race for students. There's a million things that need to happen, but what I want to figure out are what are the big things? What are the most important things that would need to happen between now and the 27th of June if this event was going to run successfully? So someone jump in the chat, tell me anything at all that would need to happen. What could it be? In the chat, what would be the big actions that would need to happen? Okay, so we need to pick locations for the hunt. Yeah, we need to appoint people to locations. Yep, love that. What else would need to happen? Yep, so we're deciding on locations. Yep, what else in the chat, guys? So we've picked locations and we've appointed people to locations. What else? We've got a month to pull this event off. Okay, we need to research amenities. I love that. That's so funny. Yes, totally. We would need to do that. Yep, I get it. Bathrooms and water. So yeah, okay, so make a risk assessment, right? So yes, make a risk assessment, super important. Plan for accessibility, love that. Yeah, risk assessment, emergencies, love all that. What else do we have to do? Make an equipment list. Okay, cool. What else? How are we actually going to get the word out? How are people going to find out about this event? Okay, we need to do marketing. Cool. So let's come back to marketing here. I'm going to come back to that in a second. What else will we have to do? Run this huge citywide scavenger hunt. What else would we have to do besides pick locations, appoint people, do a risk assessment, do some marketing? What else in the chat? Yeah, make a schedule. Okay, I like that. Make a budget. Nice. One more thing. Figure out the rules. Okay, yeah, make the rules and the points and stuff. All right, cool. That's always, I always forget. This is always the one I forget, is the order. Nice. So now that we've got these things, here's what's cool about this. When we think of ideas in this format, we typically don't think in like, first we do this, then we do this, then we do this. We like scatter all over the place. So what I'd love you to tell me is out of these, so let's just refer to them as these are the 10 actions. I'd love you to shout out and tell me what is the first thing that we would need to do out of all of these things. This is more of an art than it is a science. Out of all of these 10 things, where do you think we'd start? What would be the first thing we'd start with? Okay, pick some locations. Okay, cool. Then what would we do next? So pick locations. That's great. What do we do next? Okay, plan for the amenities. Smart. What else? Okay, yeah, do a budget. That's probably pretty smart. Yep. Plan for accessibility. Yep. So maybe we do that for the budget. Yep. Okay, what else? Do a risk assessment. Nice. What's next? Okay, do a list. Yeah, an equipment list. Yep. Do a schedule. Yep. Make the rules. Yep. People to locations. Sure. And then marketing is the last. And you probably even say you could probably do the marketing and then appoint people to locations once you've done it. So what you'll notice there is the first thing we thought of was first, which was great. But the second thing we thought of was actually the 10th thing that we do. So what you notice is when you read it like this, it reads really scattered. But the nice thing about this process is if you then filter it A to Z, one down, it starts to read in a really logical way. Pick locations, find amenities, plan for accessibility, budget assessment, equipment list, schedule, and all of a sudden you've got this really nice event. Now, for the sake of time, because we've only got a little bit more time today, 45 minutes today, I'm going to burn through these next couple of steps. But when we plan these events with organizations in more detail, I always recommend that once you get to this step, notice we haven't assigned it to anybody yet. And one of the biggest mistakes is someone goes, well, I'm the marketing officer, so I have to do all the marketing. So not necessarily. What we want to figure out for an event is what needs to happen and then how long each task takes to occur. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you can go through these individually, but let's just say each of these tasks takes 2 hours. So you probably don't need that long for all of these tasks, but let's just assume it takes 2 hours. One of my rules of thumb with events, and this always trips people up, is if an event is going to take 18 hours of planning to do, or whatever it's going to take, make marketing equal to that amount of time. So if your entire event is going to take 18 hours, spend 18 hours on marketing. So, for example, for our big summits, a huge amount of my work in getting these tickets sold is marketing, conversations, promotions, videos, speaking at events, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Actually planning an event, not super hard. I've already got the run sheet. It's all there. We know what's going to happen, et cetera. A big part of it comes down to the marketing. And so where are we here? So if you're thinking about planning an event, and some of you who run really big events, you can probably attest to this. Some people say, oh, build it and they will come. And that's just not true. Build it and promote the heck out of it, and maybe they'll come. But yes, you want to spend a lot of time on the ideation and coming up with a good idea. But in our massive action plan or our map, it's like, how's it going to get done? One of the things we're always going to have in there is marketing, which we're going to come to a little bit later. I actually refer to it as promotion here. And I'm going to show you 4 different ways to promote events, which hopefully you'll really like. These 4 ways are really cool. But we're going to come to that after we figured out everything else here. So once we've done this, we then figure out, okay, if we've got these 10 things and they're all going to take a couple of hours each, how many days are they going to take? Now, what you might find as you go through that list is it might only take you, I don't know, a day to do this task, a day to do this task. Accessibility, you might say, oh, we actually want to go visit it. So let's give ourselves 3 days. Doing a budget, 2 days. A risk assessment, I don't know, let's say 2 days. An equipment list, a day. A schedule, let's give ourselves 2 days. Make the rules 1 day. Marketing, let's give ourselves at least, I don't know, let's say at least 14 days, 2 weeks. Appoint people to locations, 1 day. Now, when you layer all this up, as a rule of thumb, you don't want that the number of days to be longer than the days to the event. Now, the reason for that, it's not that you can't do things simultaneously, but if you start doing things simultaneously, it then introduces points of failure. For example, where this becomes a Gantt chart is if we know that this first task, I should say, if this is only going to take one day and we jump in here, let's just make it red for critical path, that's going to take a day. Then the next task takes a day. Then the next task takes 3 days. Then the next task takes 2 days. Then the next task takes another 2 days. This then takes a day. This takes 2 days. I'm just following along. This takes a day. Theoretically, all of this stuff should be done by the 8th of June. Why that's important is you've then got all of this time to do your marketing, which is actually more days than we accounted for here. So that's Tuesday to Tuesday with a couple of bonus days, right? Now, after your 14 days, you might jump in and go, all right, on the last day, we actually don't want to do any marketing. Let's make sure we know who's going where. Good to appoint people. Maybe you do like a draft appointment of people the Friday before. So that could be a draft. This could be final. Maybe that's because you want to make sure no one's sick the day before, etc. But what you now have is what's typically referred to as a Gantt chart of exactly what needs to happen to pull this event off in a month. Now, when you get into who, this gets really fun. So what I always recommend you do when you do the who's is you ask people to self-nominate. So for the sake of today, let's just imagine that we had 3 people in the team. We had John, we had Smita, and we have Poe. And these are our 3 team members. As we go through these different tasks, what we ultimately would ask someone to do is to nominate themselves to each task. So John might say that, Poe might do that and that, Smita might jump in and do this, etc., etc. What I recommend as you go through, as you appoint people to tasks, or as people self-nominate to tasks, is that it's 1 person per task. Now you might say, that's a lot. For Poe to do 14 hours or 18 hours of marketing, that's a lot. It is, but what you'll notice is Poe, if Poe's doing that, for example, might not have anything to do until the 9th of June. What we don't want Poe to do is spend the next 13 days doing nothing. Instead, we want Poe doing all the thinking and all the planning so that when the marketing's ready, it can go live. Likewise, when it comes down to 1 person, that person can ask for help, but that person is responsible. So for example, if we get to making the budget, Smita might get help from a whole bunch of other people, but on Tuesday, the 2nd of June, when that task is due, Smita is responsible for having the budget done. Now, what's cool about this, think about this, my friends. Imagine if you ran your group projects like this. Imagine if when you were in a group project, you broke it down into 10 or 20 actions, you knew who was doing what by when. And then the really cool thing is, if today's Wednesday, let's imagine you have a meeting every Wednesday and that you know that your next meeting is going to be this following Wednesday, followed by this following Wednesday. At next Wednesday's meeting, these tasks that are read before should all be complete, and John should be starting the risk assessment. By this Wednesday's meeting, everything should be done, and Poe should be starting the marketing. So the only step we have left, and the final step, this is one of the things that makes it agile, is the status. And the status comes in 4 different colors. Gray is not started. Yellow is in progress, means you're working on it. Green means it's done. And red is really important. I have asked for help. Now, as we go through these different steps, everything starts on not started, which is wonderful. As you go through these different steps, people change the status themselves. So the only thing that we need to do to set this up is that John knows if John's picking locations and John's going to do that today, that when it's done, John jumps in and says, that's done. Smita then jumps in tomorrow based on John's locations. It's done. There we go. I've updated my amenities. Now, sometimes people add a notes column or a links column. That's totally fine. And you can do fancier versions of this in Notion or another technology, but this is just the bare bones. 3rd step, plan for accessibility. Now, maybe Smita, because Smita's doing all 3 of these tasks, apparently, maybe Smita does amenities and accessibility back to back. And then on the back end of that, starts working on the budget. And you get all the way through the meeting next week. And John says, all right, I'm ready to do the risk assessment. Where's the budget? And Smita goes, oh my gosh, I'm nearly done. Sorry, I'll just need another hour and I'll get it finished. That's totally fine. What we don't want is to get there and Smita gets to this point and says, oh, I'm totally stuck on researching the amenities. I don't know how to do that. The reason why we don't have it as I'm stuck, we have it as I've asked for help, is so that person identifies that they haven't stopped, they've proactively reached out. So if you have a president of a club or something like that, that's a really good person to reach out to. If nothing else, reach out to the person who's immediately above you. But ideally, we go, and then in a perfect world, we get all the way towards the event, everything's done, we're ahead of time. So on that list, when we're looking at planning it out, the things that are really important to know is we come up with the actions, we rank them, we figure out roughly how many hours they're going to take, how many days we might need. Sometimes people come back and, yeah, go for it, Erica. It's totally fine. Sometimes people come back and edit the days. They go, oh, okay, if I'm going to do this risk assessment, I actually work Wednesday and Thursday. Is it okay if I get it to you Friday? You're like, yeah, maybe. It shifts everything one day. That's okay. What we don't want is to get down here when John goes, oh, okay, I actually can't do that on Friday. I work Friday to Monday. I'm totally out. And then the whole schedule gets shifted 4 days. And all of a sudden, this thing ends up all the way over here. And now our event isn't finished. So we don't have enough time to do the marketing, etc. So if you need to shift a day, that's maybe fine, but we want to make sure it's tight enough so you can visually see it, tick, tick, and hopefully everything's going well. As you get through those meetings, this Wednesday, marketing starts. This Wednesday is probably just a marketing update. This final Wednesday then becomes, all right, our event's in a few days, last minute planning. Now, what's nice as you go through is if everyone's finished their tasks and you're like, okay, it's over to Poe for marketing, really, Poe's leading the marketing, but everyone should be working on the marketing through that period. Now, the last little point I'll give you before we wrap this one up is that this is all well and good for this event, but how do you use this in the future? So the cool thing about this process is now that we've built this little planner, it's not a bad little planner as a first start. Imagine if we labeled this 2026 try to Scav Hunt. If you wanted to run that again in the next trimester, you just duplicate it. Maybe you change the dates, maybe you change the people, maybe you make it 2027. But as soon as that event is done, you've now got that event forever. So think about all the events you run and you do the one-off things versus if you know that there's all these actions, if all we do is write it down, then the advantage of that is the next group literally starts from here. It's like you're giving them the recipe to success. Okay. So that's our massive action plan. A massive action plan is turning it into a Gantt chart multiplied by some agile project management skills. Now, I'm really conscious that I've got you for nearly 2 hours and we've been like barreling forward and I haven't given you a break yet. So I want to be really respectful of your energy here and give you a bit of a break. So what we're going to do now that we've done steps 1 and 2, we're going to burn through the next few steps. You are going to want to come back after this quick little break for the promotion because this is what actually gets people in the seat. This is why we've been able to get hundreds and hundreds of tickets sold to an event that is not even being publicly shared. It's on our website, but we haven't directed anyone to it. So I'm going to show you all the tips, all the tricks, the best things I've learned about marketing, and hopefully we can share with one another when we come back from the break.